Welcome back to another episode, everyone. Today we're going to be I'll be giving my picks and predictions for each of the fights on the UFC 311 main card. Now, if you guys have been keeping up with all the news and everything, you know that Arman had to pull out with an apparent back injury, and Islam Makhachev is now going to face Renato Moicano in the main event. I saw a tweet from Dana White somewhere that said they're trying to move Dariush around, find him an opponent, get him taken care of. But it looks like, at least according to MMA Junkie's website, that the new fight on the main card that's going to get bumped up is going to be Spivak versus Almeida. So that's an interesting one. I haven't watched as much tape on that one, so when we get there, right, I might give a little bit less detail on that one. But anyway, yeah, big shakeup and kind of a bummer, to be honest, man. But it is what it is. Hopefully the MMA gods don't continue this fucking trickery all the way through 2025, but we'll see. It's still a good fight, and Moicano has a lot of momentum. But anyway, guys, if you enjoy the podcast today, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you think of the fights, who's going to win down in the comments, and yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. What's up, everybody? If you guys have been keeping up with the news and everything, you know that Tsarukyan is out for UFC 311 tomorrow night, which is kind of a bummer. I mean, fortunate if you're Renato Moicano, obviously. He's stepping up on short notice, and he gets to fight. He gets to basically, it's not a leapfrog, but it kind of is. Like, he gets a chance to fight for the title, and if he hadn't been prepared and in the scenario that he's in right now, he might not have been ready for it, and he gets an opportunity to go out there and prove that he could be the best in the world on Saturday night. So very fortunate for Renato Moicano, right? But unfortunate for us fans, if I'm being honest. I made this argument back when Volk and Islam fought for the first time, but I argued that might have been the most, that might have been the highest representation of martial arts combined that we've seen in a cage, right? In terms of skill. Now, there are arguments to be made, I think, when you look at, like, maybe Henry Cejudo versus Demetrius Johnson, if I'm being honest, right? Like, two very skillful competitors. There are other arguments to be made, obviously, but just considering the modern-day martial arts and how good the fucking Dagestani wrestling is, so to see Volk not shut that down, but mitigate it a little bit and survive being the smaller guy and come back and win the fifth round, right? Hurt Makhachev. He was the guy winning at the end of the fight. Man, that was an excellent representation of mixed martial arts. Like, that is mixed martial arts, in my opinion, maybe at the highest level that we've ever seen. It was that fight. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But this fight coming, Arman Tsarukyan is so fucking good. He's so, if you watch his first fight against Makhachev, he took Makhachev down for the first time in his career. Now, granted, I'm going to caveat all that. Makhachev's wrestling outshone Arman's in that fight overall. He was the guy who was always able to come up on top. It felt like he was getting ahead with the wrist control. Like, he dictated the position. But similar to Volkanovski, even way back then, Tsarukyan was showing that it was possible to shut this game down. Tsarukyan is also very, very dangerous on the feet, right? So you get so excited for this matchup because he was a huge underdog in terms of I think he was at like plus 300. So to me, that's outrageous. That's outrageous. Like, their first fight was so competitive, and I feel like Tsarukyan has grown since then. And I think that people kind of look at things that happened in the Oliveira fight where he snatched up his neck and caught him in that guillotine and showed him some trouble. But, like, styles make fights, and you saw how their first fight played out. Like, Makhachev is not that kind of guy. Like, when he gets to his submissions, it's not that he's not technical. I mean, goddamn, everything they do is, like, perfect from top position. Like, they're incredibly technical. But he kind of, like, blows through you to get the submissions, whereas Oliveira feels like he could hop on anything from any position at any given time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I just think styles make fights, and Tsarukyan's defensive. Like, if he could stay defensive and keep the fight from going there, I don't know, maybe get a takedown or two himself again, felt competitive, right? But it's a bummer that that's not going to take place. All that was to say that, essentially. Now, I am excited for the fight. I think Moicano versus Makhachev is a good fight, but I think that I'll get to the pick. We'll go over the fight and maybe how Moicano could find success. But any logical person who's just looking at it, right, is just going to assume that Makhachev is going to win, and you would be right to assume so. So anyway, let's move through the rest of this main card. Actually, let's talk about the prelims a little bit here. this card is stacked, right? Clayton Carpenter versus Tagir Ulanbekov, Ricky Tercios versus Bernardo Sopaj, Rinya Nakamura. Early prelims, there's a few, like if you were a diehard, you would know. But when you get to the prelims, a great fight is Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira. Great fight. I think Grant Dawson's probably going to be favored in that one. I haven't looked at the odds. I haven't watched either. But I just know that Grant Dawson can fucking wrestle, right? But Diego Ferreira has some great grappling. He has some like knockout power. I know he's getting towards the tail end of his career, but that's a good fight. Fight I'm really excited about is Raoni Barcelos versus Peyton Talbot. I think Talbot is a rising star. He just has a knack for finding that fucking button. I think that Peyton Talbot is a guy to watch for sure. But when we get to the main card, first fight is going to be Kevin Holland versus Rainier de Ridder. And have you guys seen all the beef between Holland and Rampage? I watched it was literally the first 5 minutes of the podcast, and then I got pulled away. But on that Jackson podcast, him and Rampage were going at it. You know what I mean? And Kevin Holland's asking him what caliber gun he shoots and talking about his 45-70. He's saying it over and over again. It's very interesting. It's very strange. So I'm going to watch more of it. Like I said, I've only seen the first 5, maybe 10 minutes. But they were Kevin Holland told him to fuck himself and shit, basically. I was like, holy shit, I didn't even know what all the beef was about. I guess it was because Rampage left some sort of a comment under one of his posts. I don't know. But anyway, you guys should go check it out if you're interested. But Kevin Holland taking on Rainier de Ridder. Now, de Ridder came over from one, right, where I believe he was a champion over there. And I think the only guy that he lost to while he fought there was a 3-division champion. I forget his name. I'll look that up and make sure that I'm not lying to you guys. But his first fight was against Gerald Meerschaert, right? And Gerald Meerschaert is a veteran, and I feel like people kind of expected de Ridder, myself included, to blow through Meerschaert. And he eventually got the finish, but Meerschaert showed a lot of composure in that fight and just a lot of he didn't go away. And I think that he gave de Ridder a tougher fight than people anticipated, right? So the question is, can he do the same thing against Kevin Holland, who's a little bit younger, right? He's a lengthy guy. He's little dangerous submission skills himself, but more of a striker. I mean, I don't know. This fight is tough to judge for me because I do think that the UFC jitters, not being acclimated to that sort of atmosphere. I mean, it was just a fight night, right? But still, you're it's your first time actually stepping into the octagon. You feel that level of competition. I feel like de Ridder's going to come out more prepared. And primarily, I guess the way I feel about this fight is that I feel like when you're in an MMA fight, if you have good wrestling, it pays to be the hunter. And I feel like de Ridder will be the hunter. He'll be the one looking for the takedowns, pressing the fight back against the cage, whereas Holland is going to want to defend, maybe throw up submission attempts from the bottom, hit him with some of that unorthodox stuff. And that pays off for him a lot. But I do think that when somebody with de Ridder's grappling pedigree, he's got 12 submissions, right, to his name. I mean, he's defended his title. How did he win the title? With the rear naked choke. He defended it twice. The middleweight title over there with an arm triangle and a triangle. I mean, his submission game is very solid. I feel like he's going to find the takedowns. He's a big guy. He's going to be able to back Kevin Holland up. If he just stays very fundamentally sound on the feet and keeps things simple and looks for the takedowns, I think he'll find them. And I think once the fight goes to the ground, he's going to be on another level than Kevin Holland. I just feel like this fight feels like it's supposed to be close going into it, and I could be way off. I feel like Holland is very skillful, and it would not surprise me at all if he ended up knocking him out, catching him in some sort of submission, because he does throw that shit up. He is a long guy, but I feel like de Ridder's long too. He's huge for the division. He's 6'4". I feel like he'll dominate the wrestling exchanges, and when the fight goes to the ground, it's going to be hard work for Kevin Holland down there. We'll see. I think the best chance for Kevin is on the feet, but this is one of those ones where I feel like you think it's going to be close, but then de Ridder's realized he's gotten that first fight out of the way, and I think you'll see a better performance from him in this showing, and that's the main reason I'm picking him. I think I'm going to put money on Ritter as well. I think the odds are close enough, but I don't know. I'm kind of scared now of Kevin Holland. Like, if he sees one of my videos, what if he fucking takes up some personal beef with me because I picked fucking someone else in a fight? Like, I think he could win, but the way he's talking to Rampage, like, he'll definitely beat my ass. You know what I mean? Like, if he's not scared of Rampage, dude fights in the cage for a living. Kind of nervous to pick against him. Anyway, moving on. Heavyweight fight. Like I said, I didn't do a lot of research on this one, right? Jailton Almeida versus Spivak. This fight this is at least what MMA Junkie is reporting, is bumped up to the main card on their schedule. Good matchup. Haven't had time to, like I said, watch it, but I don't know. I think I like Spivak in this fight. I feel like he's just a big guy who is a good grappler, and I feel like it's going to be hard. Actually, you know what? Speaking of the hunter, Almeida is a hunter. Like, he will hunt relentlessly for those takedowns. Spivak might have more knockout. I hate betting on heavyweights. I bet on a bunch of fights, and I'm wrong all the time anyway. But I almost never bet on heavyweights. I feel like they're too unpredictable. And then if you look at like Curtis Blades versus Almeida, you would think that the way Almeida was Almeida's probably a better wrestler than Spivak. And I think he will be the hunter. But you look at the ability to land those shots and shit like that. Like, Spivak might be a little bit more, the power might, I don't know. I think Almeida, though. I think Almeida will put him up against the cage wrestling. When I know he got knocked out against Curtis Blades in the second round, but I just think Almeida will be too much to handle. I just think he comes at you relentlessly. His cardio is pretty decent. Well, I mean, he stalled out against Blades, didn't he? But he kind of got just fucking broken down and elbowed in the head over and over again, too. So, I don't know. I think Almeida on that one. Anyway, next fight, light heavyweight. This is one that I have watched on both guys, and one that, I don't know, this is one of the most exciting fights on the card to me, right? Jamal Hill, say what you want about him dropping the gloves against Pereira, like whatever. Put all that bullshit aside. Jamal Hill is a UFC champion, right? And he knows how to keep his name relevant. Like, say what you want to, all talk is good talk, and as long as people are talking about him, right, it keeps eyes on him, and I think it's generated a lot more interest in this fight because of who Jamal is and because of his willingness to put himself out there and kind of stir the pot a little bit, right? I think it's made this fight against Yuri Prochazka all the more exciting. And anytime you have two controversial, Yuri's a little controversial in his own right, isn't he? Right? But you have somebody like Jamal who's controversial, it's going to draw attention to that fight. I will openly say, though, that Yuri, he's not my, I try not to get too invested in it because if you guys don't know, not in the sport itself, I'm an Eagles fan, though. And when I was younger, even up until my 20s, if the Eagles lost, it would ruin my fucking day, right? Like, I would feel better again when they won the next week. Like, that's how much I thought. And I was like, whoa, you're putting way too much, emotional emphasis into who's winning a game that you can't control. And fighting is the same thing. If you attach yourself to fighters, I feel like you can get very upset. So I chose purposefully, because I loved watching fighting, to not pick favorites in terms of I really try not to pick who I want to win the fight. I just want to see how the matchups end up playing out. And with the Eagles, I'm still hooked, right? I don't let it upset me anymore. I've realized it is what it is. I can't control it. If they lose, I'm kind of fuck. This weekend, if they lose, I will be pissed though. What the fuck are you going to do? But so when I say favorite, I mean in terms of entertainment and just who I want to watch fight. I love watching Yuri fight. Win or lose, I feel like he embraces that samurai mentality. I know it's kind of odd at people, but he really does embrace that in the cage. He is a chaotic, wild motherfucker, and he just never stops coming forward or he's constantly moving up and down. Unfortunately, I think that can open you up, especially he holds his hands low. I think against somebody like Jamal, who has really good boxing, and I don't know. I feel like Jamal's going to catch him. I just feel like Jamal's it's kind of what it's reminiscent of at a much less extreme level to me is Dominic Cruz versus Cody Garbrandt, where you get a guy with a lot of movement. He's up and down. He's in and out. Like now, here he's not as fluid, but he is all over the place and he's moving. And you got a guy like Jamal who's just going to fucking sit in the pocket. And especially if he can wait a little bit, I just feel like Yuri leaves too many openings. He's been knocked out a few times now. And Jamal has that kind of power where he just has to touch you. Like, look at Jimmy Crute. He knocked Jimmy Crute out with just like a pop. Like, he's got power, man. And I feel like the guy who is willing to throw his hands more often in a matchup like this and who has like that good, I just feel like he's going to find a way to connect. That being said, if he cannot, Yuri is going to come forward. He is going to march him down. And this is what's interesting about MMA is I feel like if you look at in terms of total skill set, Yuri might be a little bit more better in certain areas, right? But I just feel like Jamal in this fight and Yuri's willingness to go to war, I feel like Jamal's going to find that opening. And when he does, I feel like Yuri's been knocked out before. I feel like the way he enters and stuff, there's a good chance that he gets caught where he's not rolling with the punch. He's coming into it. I just feel like Jamal's going to get him. I just got a feeling. But I don't know. Great fight. Like I said, Yuri's my favorite fighter to watch. And Jamal is, he's going to sit there and box, right? So, like, this is going to be a good fight. And, yeah, I just think Jamal's going to catch him, man. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Bantamweight title, Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. And these two guys do not fucking like each other. It'll be interesting to see if they end up squashing the beef and everything after the fight. This is one where I go back and forth on a lot. And somebody at class the other night when I was rolling, like when I was training, one of my training partners said, there's got to be so many parlays that get taken this weekend with Islam and Umar. Like, who's going to bust it? Like, there's so many people thinking they're a lot. And now this has kind of changed the dynamic with Moicano jumping in. But he had a good point. And sometimes I look at the wheel of, like, fate as determining who's going to win these matchups as opposed to what I think is going to happen on paper. On paper, I think that Dvalishvili does just continue to come forward, put it on Nurmagomedov, and he gives him a hard time, right? Because he just never stops coming forward. But Umar is incredibly skillful on the feet, and I feel like he's going to be able to dot Merab up. I don't know. It just feels like now that this has shifted, if I had to pick one of the two people to lose originally, it probably would have been Umar. Just because Merab is the established champion, right? And he knows what it feels like. He knows he can do it. And not that that's the only thing that matters, but he also just comes forward relentlessly, like I said. I would have picked him to relinquish his title before I would have picked Makhachev, who has already proven that he can beat Sarukian, right? So if one of the two had to bust it, my pick would have actually been Umar. But now that Moicano is stepping into the main event and that whole dynamic has shifted, like I said, now I feel like Umar is almost certainly going to win. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Merab goes out there and proves that he is the fucking champion. I'm just saying that my perspective on it is now skewed because of what happened with this. I know that's odd, but like I said, sometimes I just think that there's this weird thing about timing and the way things play out, and now it just feels like Umar and Islam are both going to win tomorrow night. Now, so that's my pick, right? But I think Merab can do it. I think Merab, I think that he's worth money to bet on alone because he's such a big underdog in this fight, interestingly, and we don't know. We just don't know. These two haven't fought before, right? So if Merab can go in there and take him down repeatedly and just put him on his back over and over and over again, like at what point will Umar not be willing to get back up? Or will his options just start escaping him because he starts to get fatigued? I don't know. That it could play out that way, but I just feel like now Umar is going to win. I'm probably going to drop a little money on Merab, but I feel like Umar is going to win. But main event time. Renato Moicano versus Islam Makhachev. I know that and I'm picking Islam as well. I'm going to be very straightforward about it. I think just where he's at right now, his confidence level, I think he's the best, and he might be the best again. If you think lightweight is the flagship division still, modern day flagship division, then not in terms of pay-per-view stuff. I'm just talking in terms of skill. Islam might be the best in the world right now. And Moicano was preparing for a grappler, but mentally, you're preparing for Beneil versus Islam. I feel like that's the biggest difference, right? And I don't know. Moicano, the one thing that he has going for him is momentum. He's on fire right now, both in terms of like marketing himself and in terms of picking up big wins in the octagon. Like when he beat the shit out of Saint Denis. That was super impressive, right? I mean, Moicano he's looking good right now. So I feel like he could come out there, stick the jab and everything in Makhachev's face, outbox him. But the question is going to be, can he stay safe on the ground? Because when they get into those wrestling exchanges, Renato's good at taking you down. He gets to that body lock and he drags guys to the ground. He has good, but he's not going to be able to do that against Islam. Like, it just feels like a very far reach to say that he's going to be able to get the types of body locks that he gets against someone like even if you look at Islam, I brought it up before, but Islam versus Sarukian 1, even in instances where someone is threatening the takedown, he's always just like hips to the mat, hips to the mat, hips to the mat. Like, he is never letting you glue his ass and back to the mat, ever. And Moicano won't be able to either. Moicano has to win, I think, by marching him down and keeping things very straight and trying to put pressure on him. When you get taken down, not exerting too much energy, but trying to efficiently work back to your feet. This is a tall task for Moicano. But if he can keep it on the feet, or when he gets taken down, survive, and then start putting that pressure on round by round, if he can just, I feel like this is what has to happen for Moicano if he's going to win. Because it's a fight. You have to give everybody a chance, right? You have to survive the first round. And then the amount of damage that you start doing has to, it can't accelerate. You'll see guys so often, Volkan Islam is a great example, where the amount of damage that they start doing accelerates too late in the fight. Like, they haven't won enough of the rounds. You need to survive and then come out like in the second and third round. Like, you want to be hitting your stride in the third. You can't wait till the middle fourth or fifth to hit your, like, if Moicano wants to win, I think the game plan is survive, and then you have to be willing to start turning it up, right? And hitting your stride in the third round and then start decelerating towards the end of the fifth. Like, obviously that's a challenge for all fighters, but he's got to survive early. And if he can survive and maybe fight through a takedown, defend a takedown, get back to his feet if he is taken down, or defend a takedown, that's a big confidence booster. But also, another thing to consider in this fight, Islam's so fucking good on the feet. Like, look how he did knock out Volkanovski in the rematch, and you've just seen him, like, everything's very sharp. He's got a lot of dexterity with his legs. Like, he can get them high kicks up top with some fucking power. And everything is just very boom, boom. But I'm just saying, Moicano's a guy who throws volume and he pressures, right? And he's not bad on the feet. So we'll see. He might have he might have a little bit of a reach advantage as well over Islam. But overall, I'm just trying to state ways that I think Moicano could pull it off. He's 5'11". How tall is Islam? Overall, though, like I said, the odds are going to be astronomically in favor of Islam, and rightfully so. Islam's 30. He's 5'10". Yeah, it's not going to be that big of a discrepancy in size or anything. And if you've seen Makhachev on the scale, I mean, it looks like he cuts a significant amount of weight to get down there. Like, he'd probably be very comfortable at 170. So we'll see. Anyway, that's my picks for this weekend, guys. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Much appreciated. If you enjoyed the episode, do me a favor, subscribe. Let me know who you guys think is going to win the fights this weekend down in the comments. And, thank you guys for tuning in. I'll catch y'all next time. Bye-bye.